Hello there, this is Jason, and I'm going to do a little series of videos on flyer production, design, different things. I'm calling them breaking through the creative barrier. Right, I'm making this flyer right here for a revival at our church we're doing, and Pastor asked me to put it together on Sunday, and I figured I'd work on it, and I got it done by the afternoon on Monday. So here's some of the process going on. Here's some photos I'm going to use. I'm going to use this picture of a jail and this picture of a girl jumping up in the air with her arms up. Okay, and so as far as concept and different things, I'll have another video about that and coming up with ideas and different things. But this is just nuts and bolts making a flyer from scratch. First of all, starting in Photoshop at the beginning. If you have Photoshop, to get the most out of this video, you should have a relatively good understanding of layers and making a document, RGB, CYMK, the difference between those two. Not those questions will be answered in later videos. I am going to do the second half where I take what I make here in this video and use it to finish off in a different program called Corel Draw. And I'll show you my creative process, and I just want to say this is me. This is not the way to do it. This is a way to do it. But this is the way it's worked for me. Like I said, I have a flyer company. I was in business for 3.5 years, and it worked out really good. I learned a lot of good skills and stuff. I'm not doing that anymore, just kind of casual. So I have time now to pass on some wisdom, so anyone who care to learn exactly what I'm doing. So here on Photoshop, I'm going to set up a new document. Whenever I design a flyer from scratch, I do it half-page mode. The reasons for that I'll talk about in my other video, but it's 8.5 by 5.5, and you can add a 1/4 inch to both sides of the dimensions, because generally you're going to want 1/8 of an inch bleed on both sides. So if you add 1/8 of an inch to the left, to the right, to the top, and the down, you just added a 1/4 inch to the whole document. Okay, math. And you want to make it at least 300 dpi resolution. 300 dpi is just fine if you're making these little flyers that are going to hold you, that you can hold in the palm of your hand and pass out to people. And sometimes you are going to make a half-page flyer for someone, for the harvesters, or some people like just the big half-page flyers. It's a tradition, they've always had them, and so that's what they want. And they're proportional down. I'm going to produce a 4x6 postcard flyer, so it's proportional. Everything I design here will fit nearly perfectly into that 4x6 format. So anyways, keep on rolling here. Here's my document. Here's my field. I'm going to hit Control R, I believe what it is, and the rulers are going to pop up. And then from that point, I'm going to draw or drag guidelines in. What I'm going to do, these guidelines, and put them a 1/4 inch on both sides, so that's the cut space and the bleed, allowing you to save everything that's on the inside of these 1/4 inch borders. So you're going to design all the way out to the edge of your artboard, but anything important that really must be seen has to be inside this 1/4 inch border. Right? This is an 1/8 of an inch on the inside of your finished product. Just imagine that in your head. You don't want to have big text or some cool element of your picture hanging off the edge. You want it all just right there. So I'm going to start off and bring my folder with all my stuff in it to the front. Just going to click and drag it into the workspace. The transform controls there. I'm holding in the shift key or the control key as I'm doing this. I believe it's the control key. It's the control key. So it'll drag it proportional. If you don't have the control key, you get all kinds of weird shapes. You won't be able to pull it exactly proportional. So this is what I do. And I'm just going to try to center this as good as I can, right in the middle of the artboard, so that window is like the focal point of the whole flyer. See, that's the original photo there. And you can see the jail in the background, and it's kind of the main motif of the flyer. So you can talk about setting people free. The best way to contrast that was with the non-freedom of being in jail. So that's where that comes from. And I'm trying to get it so the floor is almost between a third and 2/5 of the way up, just like the original document. So I'm going to just rebuild this somewhat, and then I'm going to go open up the original PSD file and we'll deconstruct it from there. I'll show you how all the layers interact. So that's a nice black and white jail picture. I'll make it black and white because I'm going to color it in my colors. If you notice the original document, it's all blue, orange, yellow. And start off, put a gradient on the top. There's some built-in gradients here that work pretty good. Here's this blue and yellow one, so I'm going to start off with that. And you can adjust all kinds of things with Photoshop as far as these gradients go. The degree of the fading, the angle that it is, the scale. You can reverse it and do all kinds of cool things. You can change the colors, you can add colors. You could drag controls to adjust where it fades, where it doesn't fade. It's really cool, real cool tool. They copied it from Corel. Just kidding. Well, see, I'm going to now change the blending method to color. So what that does is it makes it transparent, but it keeps the color and it colors everything underneath it. So you can see in this picture, I turn it off, there's no color. Go all the way to the bottom, I've got the color of the original document, the original picture. But when I change, when I turn on the top layer, the blending method is color, and it'll color everything underneath it. I'm also putting a brightness and contrast filter on top of here, and I want a little contrast. I want that to be more dramatic contrast. If you look at the original document, it's very more dramatic. There's the blacks are black, the whites are whites. You can see how that is. It's just more dramatic of a look to it. So you don't want to just have this plain Jane looking thing going on here. So you want to make it a little more dramatic, and everything underneath that is going to be affected by the contrast settings you put on there, and just like the color thing. So I like to change the contrast and the brightness, and on top of that we're going to put the color change on top of that. So that's kind of how that works out. Now you got the better contrasted underpainting, I guess you could call it, and then on top the colors. So, the colors aren't exactly like it was. There's more orange in there. There's more different things happening. I'll put this up to multiply and just go through the different blending methods. That looks pretty dramatic, maybe like scary movie kind of a drama. That's pretty cool. That's pretty dark, pretty emo looking. Different moods you get when you go through the blending methods. Just keep it highlighted and use the arrow keys to flip the blending methods. There you go. They press go free. Alright, so that kind of looks, that's kind of normal. I think in the original one I did use color as the filter method. I'm going to show you that now that this is a picture, I can use a paintbrush. Select it on the left hand side, sized, low in the hardness. Right now I'm just touching on painting orange down on top of it, and it's too much of aggressive a brush for me, so I'm going to undo. I'm going to go to the undo dialog and undo all my brush strokes here. All the way to the blending change. Then I'm going to soften up my brush. The opacity on the properties bar right there, I'm going to change it to 30. I just hit the number 3 key and it changes. So I'll make it bigger and less opaque. I'm going to start painting orange on there. The changes are going to be real subtle. And I'm just using a mouse. I'm not using a pen tablet or anything. It's just real basic, just dabbing. This paste going on here. You can see the undo history on the side is going to start populating. And do that till I get about the right hue that I want of orange, interdispersed amongst the yellow and the blue. I'm also going to lighten this up. I'm using my eraser to erase this part right here, which is, because that's kind of dark. So I'm going to use the eraser. There you go. And so just so you know, if you take away the blending method and take away the opacity and all that stuff, this is actually just, looks a bunch of splotches on paint. It's not really exciting or anything at all. Watch, I'll switch it up here. Yep, any day now. See, it doesn't look exactly like that, but it's gonna. Don't worry. All right. This isn't real time, by the way. I'm kind of commenting on top of a video that I made. Okay, we're just gonna open up the original one. Mess around. So I'm going to go to my folder. Everything's nice in order here. PS document. Right, see, there it is. That's the finished product, kind of. And I'm just going to turn everything invisible. Turn all the layers off so you can see right through them to what's underneath. All the way till this layer. See how that gradient layer looks? Wow, that's different. Well, I'm going to turn the blending method to normal and probably turn the opacity down, and you can see what it is. It's real boring. I mean, I'm going to go all the way down. No. There it is. Okay. Look at that. See, the contrast is a lot better on this one. So now that's the settings. That's just brightness and contrast. And look at this gradient fill here. I'm going to change it to normal. And we're going to have the settings. There you go. From color to normal. Change it. Change it. Alright, so that's all it is. Fill opacity is 100%. See it? That's all it is. Just a layer of splotches. Brush on. You didn't even do the gradient thing if you know exactly where you want and what you want. I'm just going to change it back and change it back to color. That's where the color comes for that. So that's kind of cool. But then on top of that, I want a little more texture. There's no texture. So I have this layer here, the 191-0151. It's basically a kind of a geometric painting that I have. I desaturated it. It's all black and white and grayscale now. But I'm going to hit that overlay and turn down the opacity so that it's acts kind of like a texture layer on top. It just gives a little movement. I kind of do this kitchen sink kind of thing on all my flyers. I just achieved a goal, I colored it, it looks good, the contrast is fine, but I want to be able to add a little bit more movement back there that's going to be real subtle and you can't even see really unless you look real close and get a flyer that me or some of these guys have designed, and you can see these little layers of black and white stuff or different things you put on top to add some texture. This is another desaturated picture I brought in. Got this cool writing on it and splotches, and it's all hand drawn. That's how I position that one. So then I make that one. I forgot what the blending method for that was. Click on it again. Click on it again. Soft light. Soft light basically takes. It makes it transparent in a certain way that it worked better than the overlay right here. So, but that's how I do it. Changes, makes it a little darker, makes the gel seem a little more eerie, a little more dramatic lighting. So here's jumping up in the air girl, and she's white. But what happened? It used to be purple, black on top of purple, a little gradient too. So what it does is I take my picture here, my folder in front, click and drag the photo right on top. Wow, it fits right there in the middle. What a coincidence. I'm going to double click that, make it a raster layer. Click a magic wand tool. I'm going to double click right on the black. It's going to select black only. Of course, I'm going to invert that so that the purple gradient area is selected. I'm going to take an eraser. I'm just going to erase all the purple. And the mask, the selection, rather, is going to protect all the black part. So I'm going to erase the purple, keep the black. Turn the size up, turn the hardness up on my brush. You can do that for your erasers too. And we're just going to erase, erase, erase. The opacity is 100%, so anything I touch is just gone. Destructive, destructive, destructive. Okay, that's my eraser. I'm going to deselect that. And there'll be areas below and above and around the edges where you might have missed. So you can take her, Control R, and deselect her. Well, what I did was I inverted the selection, so now the black is selected and the exterior of her jumping is now protected. And I'm taking a white paintbrush, 100% opacity, and just painting her in. Now she's white. I don't know what the original model was, but I just whitewashed her. Okay, evil, evil. But I need a contrast to the background, which is depressing, dark. So I have this person that's seemingly jumping out of the middle of all this thing, basically coming out of the window. So I'm going to take this brush tool. I'm going to put a layer mask on top of her, and I'm going to paint on the mask, which kind of erases her, but does not destroy her. So I can go in, I can paint white back onto the same mask and bring her back. So I'm just dabbing until there's no intelligible legs or lower body here. And it seems like she's at least connected to this window somehow, and you know, she's freed them, and the light's going to be shining. I'm going to put a lens flare and everything out here later using a different program. There she is right in the proper space, and so now I want to make a shadow behind her instead of just opening up, like I said, the effects box in drop shadow, because this fade that she's fading out into the window, that's going to be exposed. So I made that shadow behind her. The way I did that by selecting the girl layer, duplicating the girl layer, and right on top of itself, I'm going to do apply the layer mask. So I just have that picture. There's no mask now. Just that picture now floating out in the middle of the air, you know, middle of space. I'm gonna call it shadow of the chick. All right, there you go. So I know, because you know, being all dark and faded and in the background won't give me a clue that it's a shadow. So you can rename those layers just by double-clicking on the letters if you have a hard time keeping track of what stuff is. So I magic wand the exterior and. I magic wand the white area, and I'm going to black it in on this layer though, not on top of the one on the white on the original, but on top of a new layer. Now I have this black thing, and select it, and I'm going to blur it. You know, effects or filter, blur, Gaussian blur will make kind of just blurriness, general blurriness by a pixel degree, and it gives you a little preview right there. And fuzzy, and then we take that and put it behind the original white version, offset it, change the opacity to multiply, and adjust the fade. That way I get a nice dark shadow in the background that you can see through. And then of course I'll take my eraser, and I want it to taper down, so I have like her coming out of the window, but it's also a 3D kind of effect of her popping out of the flyer itself in your hands. Pretty amazing. That's the rest of this. Okay, part 2. So here I am. I've got behind you. I've erased it. It's got kind of this popping out of the flyer, and that you're holding in your very hand, and so it's kind of a cool effect. So just kind of threw that in there. We are going to delete all that and just turn on the original stuff. Right now, there it is. I can always do this drop shadow dialog where you drop shadow her, but then you get the graying, because it drop shadows everything, even stuff that's half visible. So this way I have control over every little aspect of that. If she was a solid object with hard edges, it wouldn't matter. I would just do that dialog box, but she's not. So I'm going to go into another program. I'm going to export this as a flyer. I save everything like in it as a step. So this is Gibbs Colton. It's going to be like raw. I export it as a JPEG, 8.5 by 5.5, or 875 times 575. Photopaint. This has really good dialogue in it for lens flares. Pretty superior. I mean, Photoshop has one, but it's just kind of like a bright light. You have a couple of choices, but this one has more choices to it, and control factor. This isn't actually a very intense. Quiet. This isn't a very intense lens flare I'm putting on there, but it's going to add some drama to this person, right? So it's good to be free. Yeah, you're in jail, prison, bound by sin, whatever. It's good to be free now. So put that little X right in the middle of her lower body there, and you got that flare that popped up. This is saved my last used, so it came up real easy, but I had to adjust these things in these dialog boxes to get it there. You can adjust the count of rays that comes off of her, the brightness, rotation, streaks, sharpness, and I was playing with it for a while. I got it exactly how I wanted it. I'm messing it up right now, but you can actually control the flares and different stuff, brightness, fall off, color. You can make it, you know, blue, that's a little too bright, not bright enough. You can go all up and down, and that totally blows everything else away. That's a J.J. Abrams right there. There you have it. And so I'm going to put the flare on there. What I did, and I saved it. When I saved it again, now it was as a different document. It was Gibbs Colton 16, I believe. And so, so what I did is after I did that adjustment to it, I grabbed it and dragged it into the Photoshop dialog on top of everything. You see in the bottom right hand corner, Gibbs Colton 16. I dragged it in there. Drag, it pops right in the middle. You can't even tell. You have this layer that has lens flare, and everything else underneath it is normal. So like you see when I turn it on and turn it off, it'll be there, it'll not be there. So I have it's there, it's not there. So on, off, on, off, on, off. See that? It's exactly the same photo, just touched up a little bit. And to me, I still feel there needs to be some kind of movement too. So I'm gonna load. I want to do is I'm gonna duplicate the girl again. I'm gonna use like a motion blur. Like not only is she popping out of the page, but there's gonna be a little blur suggestion that she's moving in an upward fashion out of the gel as well. So I thought I had saved a selection of that, but I'm not. I'm just gonna do what I probably did in the first place, and I forgot. Just duplicate, of course, the white layer with her. And then rasterize that. Look it, I have the mask saved. No, I didn't. I magic wanded. Never mind. Duplicating the layer. It's that little blur. That's I do the same way you do the drop shadow. So this is on top. I'm going to duplicate the layer with the girl on it. That goes right on top. I'm going to go move it to the top layer. And I'm going to rasterize layer or apply the mask. Or disable the mask. Okay. That way, see, and she's just there. She's got legs. I'm going to go to blur again, but this time I'm going to use motion blur. And you can change the angle. So adjust the angle of the blur and, of course, the pixel distance. So I've got this blur going on sideways, little angle, 63 degrees. There's some blur going on, so I got my desired effect, I'm at OK. Click and drag the blur down, offset it as well. What it does is it blurs it in both directions, on both sides of the image, and you don't want that. So I'm just going to hide the top end. Click and drag it down there like that, so it's offset. So there she is, she's got motion. Coming straight up at you. Look out, you might get hit. Then of course I'm going to erase out the low opacity soft edge eraser. But anyways, I'll delete that. I'm just gonna turn on the original. There you have it. That's when I decided, okay, I think this is workable, this is doable. So I saved it, of course, and then exported it as a BKG file. That's my way of telling myself that's the background. That's my little abbreviation, so I know. It's the background, no text, no nothing, no fancy. But it's got all these elements in there that are nicely fit. I've got plenty of space at the bottom for text and invitation. I got some area around her, and on top of her I can put text. And I'm just kind of thinking ahead the whole time. That's why the whole floor is basically empty. I have to put the invitation, the church location, the times and everything there. So that's that. And the next video is going to cover the process from then on. So thanks for watching. Click on the other video. It'll be cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you. If you don't know much about layers, imagine yourself looking through the skylight of a room, looking down on a bunch of layers stacked up. On the right hand side on the bottom, there's all these layers. And if you're looking down the skylight, maybe like a chimney, a really small space shaped like our artboard, you're only seeing that top layer. Unless you go to those opacity controls and these blending methods and you do stuff like change the opacity so you can see what's underneath it. Then you can see what's underneath it. Okay. And that's how layers work. You're looking down on the top layer, and parts of that layer can be transparent, or the whole thing could be somewhat transparent, blend into the bottom ones, and then you're seeing the finished product in your artboard window. On the right, it's how they stack, and then right in front of you is how they look from the top, so to speak.